Excellencies, Mr. Fulson, Mr. Erzinger, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here again, and I would like to convey you the best wishes of the Swiss government. I would especially thank the ISC for the very good chosen topic, growth. What kind of growth? It's really a debate which every government has to think about, and Mr. Jackson made a very good introduction. I think it's also in a period where we all know we have to rethink how fast, what kind of growth we can do. In Switzerland, you know, we have low growth rates, but we are a happy country. We are a happy country because quality of life exists. We have a low unemployment rate. We are normally one of the most best-ranked countries on competitiveness all over the world. Innovation is in all rankings. We are among the best. And we have social freedom. We have no social unrest. So actually we could say the Swiss example perhaps could also be a role model for other countries. But my elements of my thinkings and thesis perhaps is more on multilateral level, because one country alone cannot change the world. And because I was also a part, I think here, I have the same, a part of the Paris Agreement. And I think this showed an example of what kind of growth we have to care about. Lord Griffith say sustained growth actually in Europe, in most OECD countries was since 30, 40 years actually part of our philosophy, also of our economic philosophies. But we did not enough care about the climate. In Switzerland, we have melting glaciers. We have in our constitution the element of sustainability. And here I think the Paris Agreement is really a historical agreement, because it was for the first time of the history that we have a universal legally binding agreement. Not only developed country, OECD countries, every country of the world signed the agreement and expressed by that it's important to have here another kind of growth which really cares about the environment. And yes, implementation is not already done. It takes some time. The process of ratify might be in some countries of a difficulty. But it's a big success because we don't have the distinction of the differences of the old world after the Second World War. With developed country, developing country, the BRICS, something in between them, we give up these differences. And that's a big hope that in other parts of our economy, in other parts of multilateral solutions, we can give up between developed countries have to go ahead, have to do much more, have to pay, that everybody took over his duty, and every country of the world took over some standard, some common orientation. Perhaps here. We don't like this kind of growth neither. It was said, resources, we have limited resources, and here also we know when we run for growth, for fast growth, and we don't care about resources we have on the planet, we are doing wrong. But also here, shall Switzerland, shall Europe, shall OECD countries go ahead? Implement standards, and the rest of the world doesn't care about that. This is a difference also in competition. When our industry has to invest all over the world, and they have much more favorable standards in China, in India, also in Brazil, well, it's clear that they invest where they have not a lot of costs for standards we here in Europe or in OECD countries are demanding of them. In the environment, we have not a lot of universal standards. We have on chemicals, on waste, we have some conventions, mostly 30 to 50 countries ratified them, and the rest is not partner. 2 years ago, we had a new convention, the Minamata Convention, which tries to phase out in the whole economy of the world mercury. Because we know it's very unhealthy for people's situation, and here we can't allow this anymore. So only by standards, by multilateral conventions, we really can offer also to the industry all over the world quite fair conditions. Here we have to improve. That's not sustainable growth when the differences and the implementation of such standards don't take place. It was already said, we have on the labor market not a lot of common standards. We have children which are perhaps also in some countries the modern slaves. We know all about that, and we try our best to phase this out. I agree, it was said before, the ILO conventions have not been ratified by, not even by all G20 members. Half of them did not ratify the key conventions of ILO. Again, the multilateral system would be helpful, that we have plus minus at least some common orientation also on the labor market. This would be helpful all over the world to have at least a reliable system, also labor standards, which could be helpful for Europe, for the US, for Japan, for other OECD countries who implemented decent work, decent protection also of the workers. Here we have to improve. Yes, we still have a lot of people, a lot of unemployment all over the world. And I think that's really some element of unrest which is harmful to growth. And here I think it was also said before, we need to care about inequality. We need to care also that we have enough jobs. We need to care about inclusive growth. Also here, it's not easy for governments to change the situation. Yes, we need investments. Yes, we need to invest in education. We have to prepare our societies for digitalization. When robotics and digitalization change every sector of our economy, it's first of all for governments an investment in research, an investment in new structures. We have to recognize very early the new behavior of our consumers. And this needs a lot of investments also in education. Then we are ready to give the losers also of a new structure, again, hope, perspectives, and a decent job. I think this will be very important in the upcoming years, that we have also, with the differences we have all over the world, hope, perspectives all over the world, that we can have an integration, an inclusive economy all over the world. I think what Ludwig Erhard said many, many years ago, the father of the social market economy, is therefore still a value we should integrate in our philosophies. He said, free economic systems can only survive in the long term if a nation is able to ensure the social well-being of its citizens by safeguarding the principles of freedom, private initiative, and personal savings. Therefore, when this leads me to my last comment also on the financial policies. I don't know if on the long run money which is overflooding our markets, which you can get at low prices, is really a big, better thing for economic growth. It's not sustainable. Cheap money with negative interest loads, at the end of the day, it's no solution. It might be helpful to survive a couple of years, but it's not sustainable growth we can get with that. So here, also our central banks have to look very close at the long-time effects of this philosophy. Well, I come again to my first point. Every nation has to do his homework. Yes, I think in Europe we did a lot of things in the right concept with the right time. But we are not the only ones on the planet. We need a more globalized international approach. TTIP will only be accepted when it also is covering some social and environmental aspects. We had a free trade agreement with China. We passed it through parliaments and it was accepted, I think, also in our society because we have, in parallel to the negotiations, we negotiated also on the environment. We have an MOU with China. We help them to measure the quality of air. We help them to have improved water quality. So these are measures which are helpful to have majorities. And here I think think we should have this TTIP also in Switzerland, but it must be that you have acceptance also in the population. You must have additional measures that people can trust in the market system, that people think we are treated the same all over the world and it's fair. So therefore, I hope we will have a lot of new ideas during this symposium. Many thanks.